Good morning, everybody. This is Danny from Deep South Homestead. Back on Porch Talk today and Porch Time, guys. Yep, it's a little chilly this morning. It finally was made it up to about 40 degrees. I'm actually trying to beat the wind and everything because the wind is starting to pick up pretty good. But it's going to be a nice day, I believe. We hadn't been able to do too much on porch time on the porch here lately because the weather's just not been conducive for it. The wind has been extremely strong. It's either been raining or something's going on. And today the wind is no different. I'm just trying to beat it. It's very early in the morning. And it's very cool out here. It's a little bit chilly. But I'm doing my best to try to make it happen on porch time today on the porch, actually. That's the whole reason for building this area right here where we're at, is to have a place to do it. And to get away from the big house and to get over here in a better atmosphere, and not have maybe quite so much noise over here. Of course, you're going to hear the chickens and the roosters and all that in the background, maybe the cows, but guys, that's farm life, I mean, those are natural sounds. And guys, what I want to kind of hit on today is something that my father used to say to me all the time as a young man growing up and as a young child, and that is, how far are you willing to go? That's kind of a statement that carries with it a lot of repercussion. How far are you willing to go? My dad always told me, he said, son, if you're ever going to do anything, try to be number one. Nobody ever remembers who number two was. Number two was just runner-up to number one. I mean, they always remember who was first. If you ever go back in history and you try to remember who did this or who did that, people remember the person that won. They don't ever remember the person who was a runner-up. Whether it's second, third, fourth, whatever, those people don't ever get remembered. He said, so if you're going to do anything, give it 110%. Go above and beyond the call. And guys, that's what I've done my whole life. I've always strived to be the best at anything I've ever done. Now, it doesn't mean that I was the best. It just means that I strived to do the best. And I think that that's what the Lord expects out of us also. I think the Lord expects us to be the best that we can be for Him. And, I stop and I think about my gardening. When I do my gardening, I try to think about it in a way that that the Lord would have me to, because the Lord said, whatever you do, or whatever your hands find it to do, do it as though you're doing it unto the Lord. And that's my motto for life. Whatever I do it as though I'm doing it unto the Lord, and I give it my best. I don't think the Lord deserves second best. I think that He deserves us to give our best. Whether it's in being a farmer, whether it's being a YouTube channel, whether it's growing in the high tunnel, whether it's being a husband, whether it's being a father, or or whatever, a leader in the community, whatever, I think that we should give it our best. And how far are you willing to go to be the best? Or how far are you willing to go for any circumstance that arises in your life? Are you willing to sell your soul to the devil? How far are you willing to go to accomplish what you need to accomplish? There was a period of time in my life that I did not heed my father's advice. When I was climbing the ladder, I wanted to be really, really good at business, and I wanted to have companies that made lots of money. I wanted to have companies that just were great companies. And as I was climbing, let's just call it the corporate ladder, as I was climbing that ladder, I stepped away from the wisdom of my father. And I come to a point, I didn't care who you were. I would just step on you as I climbed the ladder. I would do whatever I had to do to get to the top, you know. And any of you who's ever seen some of my way in the past videos, one of my companies one time that I was running, I didn't give my employees, we didn't take off for Christmas, we didn't take off for New Year's, I didn't do holidays. I said, we just worked. You know, I told them, I said, no, we're here to work. That's what we do, you know. And if you take off, you're fired. That's just who I was. And there was a point where my whole crew one time, I didn't give anybody off for Christmas, and my whole crew come to me and asked me, said, you know, can we have Christmas Day off or something, you know? And I was like, no, we don't need. I mean, we got to work. And my whole crew quit and left me the next day with nobody there but me. And I was trying my best to make production, and I realized, I said, wow, you know, without my crew, this is virtually impossible. And I went back to my crew, and some of my crew members, and I told them, I said, look, what is it going to take to get you guys to work and to come back to work? And they said, just some holidays off or something like that. And I told them, I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you a deal. I'm going to give you holidays off with pay. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to give you a few extra days beyond the holiday days off for pay. At Christmas, we're going to take off a whole week. At Thanksgiving, we're going to take off a whole week, and I'm going to pay you for those whole weeks. And it just floored them. They go, oh my gosh, who are you? You know? And I told them, I said, look, I've been wrong. I've averted from the wisdom of my father, and I just got caught up in the world. And I told him, and I apologized for that. I told him, I said, I'm sorry for that. I said, I was willing to go places I shouldn't have went to accomplish dreams that I had without taking into consideration the feelings of others. And I was wrong for that. And I apologize to y'all for that. And if you'll come back, I will give you time off paid. And they agreed to it. And you know, I learned a valuable lesson. Once I gave my crews time off paid and stuff like that, I actually got more production out of them by treating them with respect than I ever did just running over them and stepping on them. And you know, there's times you do business. When you're a business owner, like I was, and I had to go up against other businesses. I mean, there's times that you have to be very hard, very stern, and not care about walking on someone if you're going to keep a business rolling and keep your employees with a job and keep them fed. And I get that part of it. But once I learned that my employees were special, they were my bread and butter, so to speak, and I treated them with respect. It was at that point that my company actually began to flourish and actually began to grow, and they done very well after that. Until I retired and shut them down, and just didn't use them anymore. But guys, that's the point I'm making. How far are you willing to go? What will you do? Let's take another scenario. Suppose the food runs out and you've been negligent. You haven't provided for yourself. You haven't stocked up. You haven't took the heed of the warnings that everybody today is giving about stocking up food, storing food, buying land so that you can. You didn't take the heed. You didn't do it. You said, "Well, I'll be fine. I'm not worried about it." And then all of a sudden, an LCE happens, and for those of you who are not followers of mine, that's a life-changing event takes place, whether it's a hurricane, a tornado, a death, a loss of health or just a loss of a job, whatever, an LCE happens in your life and you're sitting there and you have absolutely nothing for your family. How far are you willing to go to feed your family? Will you steal? Will you beg? Will you plead? Will you kill? How far are you willing to go to do something that you made a mistake and didn't accomplish when you should have? These are things that we need to think about as we head into the future that our country's headed into. How far are you willing to go if all of a sudden you can't put a roof over your head? Think about that. If you don't make the right decisions and you don't make wise decisions and you get yourself extremely deep in debt and you're sitting here going, but I want this big house, I want to live right here, and you're not willing to live within your means like we all should. No bill that we pay should ever be more than a week's paycheck. That's the rules that we were raised on in a country back when men were men and finances were under control and not everybody was deep in debt. That was just the rules back when I was a kid. Our parents raised us coming out of the Great Depression and stuff. Never make a note that's larger than 1 week's income. And if you happen to break those rules, my father used to tell me, son, how much are you paying for what you just bought? And I said, well, Dad, I'm paying this. He said, do you make that each week? And usually I stayed below what I made a week. And I would say, yes, sir, I make more than that a week. He said, okay. He said, just checking, to make sure that you hadn't done something foolish there, son. He said, because if you do something foolish like that, it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. And all the hard-earned effort and work you put into something can be lost in a moment's notice. You could get sick, you could have something happen, and all of a sudden you can't meet a week's paycheck, and then you're screwed because you got behind. And it's very difficult to catch up once you get behind. My dad, believe it or not, only had a 4th grade education. He had to go to work when he was 12 years old sawing logs with a crosscut saw because his dad fell and broke his leg, and they had no food during the early years of his life. So he had to literally quit school to go to work to feed the family. But even though he only had a 4th grade education, the man was extremely intelligent. Now, he didn't have a lot of book knowledge as far as, mathematical stuff was, concerned, or checking accounts and all that kind of stuff, how to run stuff to that nature. But Mama usually did all that because she was very good at, she was a CPA, several years of her life and stuff. She did a good job of it. Dad come to depend on her for that. But Dad was a very wise man when it come to surviving and being able to make it in this world. He had good common sense, which is something that very few people today even have, is common sense. I'm amazed at how few people have any common sense. But, how far are you willing to go if you don't follow good common sense rules? If you get yourself in a bind, how far are you willing to go? Are you willing to kill, steal, cheat, rob? Are you willing to do these things? Beg? And you go, oh, well, I would never do those things. Well, let me ask you this. If you're sitting there and you've made some foolish decisions in your life, and I'm guilty of it. I'm going to say I'm guilty of it. There's opportunities in my life that I have let slip through my fingers from just sheer stupidity and foolishness. I'll never get them opportunities back. Not that I can't see ever having them back. And yeah, I've lost tremendously because of them, and made some bad decisions. I mean, we all make them. We just, the thing is, we got to man up to it, or as the phrase goes, we got to cowboy up. We got to say, hey, I made a mistake, and learn from it. Don't make the same stupid mistake again. Learn from it. You know, I mean, what's the definition? What do they say is the definition of an idiot? Someone who keeps doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting to get a different results. That's what the old people used to say was the definition of an idiot. And I think that probably still holds true today. You know? Well, let's move forward. The situation that our country's in right now. We're at the point it's probably not going to be long, we're going to collapse at some point. I mean, it has to happen. The bubble's going to bust. The financial bubble is going to bust. Let me say that. There's just no way at the rate we're going that we can continue to. You can't print money and borrow yourself out of a hole. You just can't do that. It's never worked in history. Nowhere has it ever worked in history. More than likely, what's going to happen is we will come to a point that we've printed so much money that the value of the petrodollar or the American dollar is going to be devalued to the point to where now I'm having to get into some waters I got to be careful on, to where we're going to have to accept the currency that really a lot of it's done been printed. It's a three nation currency. Mexico, United States, and Canada is in on this currency. You know, the powers to be. I hate political correctness. You know that? I hate it. I hate that we can't have people that can stomach the truth. But the powers to be that are, I believe, intentionally collapsing the American dollar so that we can actually, they want to switch us over to this three-nation currency, which I don't think is ever going to get into circulation, personally, because of the need to track everything. I think that we're probably going to skip that currency and go on to blockchain currency more than likely. Now, I could be wrong. You know, I could be wrong. We could go to that currency for a brief period of time. Now, this currency don't have presidents' faces on the bills or anything like that. I've seen it. I mean, I've already looked at it. It has famous bankers and, you know, famous people in histories from 3 different nations' faces on the currency. And, you know, guys, man, I hate this political correctness. There's going to be a few words that you're probably going to start seeing a lot of here in the future. I'm just going to say one of them is tracking. You're going to start seeing the word tracking on a lot of stuff in the future because it's part of the it's part of the agenda that is being implemented at this moment. Is tracking, and it's the powers to be don't want you to have the right to be free, whether it's through speech or the right to defend yourself, the right to protect your property. You know, the First, Second, Third, and Fourth Amendments. These rights are gradually being amended to the point that you know you don't have what you think you have, and it's irritating me, and I got to be careful here on this and get off of it because I can get into that, and there's so much I know about it that it just irritates me to the point I want to just sometimes, like you've heard me say on the past, I just want to scream sometimes. Like what do these freaking idiots think that they're doing? You know, and I know what they're doing. They're just trying to control everything. But you know, how far are you willing to go when this stuff happens? Are you going to comply? You know, I mean, the state I live in right now, we're called Neanderthals because we decided to, you know, cut the masks out, and not just us. You know, there's several other states, you know, that has that has followed suit. You know, you got Florida and there's Arizona and there's some sections of Connecticut and West Virginia. There's different places that's beginning to do the same thing, and we're all being called Neanderthals. And probably the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be probably some of your freedoms and your rights are going to be taken away from you if you're in one of these areas. You know, they're probably going to say, well, if you're from here, you can't go to there, you can't do this, you can't do that. If you don't have this, you know, if you don't have this, then you're not going to be able to go grocery shopping, you're not going to be able to do this or do that. And guys, how far are you willing to go? Just, are you willing to go be punched up, let me say that, to have the freedoms and the rights to do things? I mean, are you willing to go that far? You know, I mean, I'm not. You know, I still believe in freedom. I still believe that I should have the right to do what I want to do as long as it's morally okay. I believe I should have the right of free speech. I believe I should have the right to bear arms. I believe I should have these rights. These are they're called, let me say this, they're called inalienable rights. They're not given to you by someone. They're your inalienable right as a citizen or as a human being to have. They're not granted by someone. They're your rights. You should have these. And, you know, you know what? I got to get off of this. Just how far are you willing to go? Yeah, are you willing to sell your soul to the devil to be able to enjoy what tastes of freedom you're allowed to have? You know, we've been watching as the, I can't say that. Oh, it's irritating. Anyway, guys, it's going to get even more difficult and more difficult for me to be able to do Porch Time. It's very difficult for me to keep all the rules and all the regulations in my head and remember what words I can and cannot say because of the marshmallow society we have out there today, the snowflake society, whatever you want to call them, that can't handle the truth and they can't handle specific words that are spoken because they offend their feelings or they hurt them in some way. You know, when I was growing up, as a small child, we used to have you always had those, we called them nursery rhymes or whatever you want to call them, you know. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words could never hurt me, you know. And that's the way we were raised, you know. You can get hurt with sticks and stones, but, you know, people are talking about you. Go on with that. No, it doesn't. It's not even going to bother you, you know. It doesn't want to hurt you. But now, now, sticks and stones will break your bones and words will kill you. They will destroy you psychologically. Oh my God, you can't say that. That's horrible to say that to someone, you know. And I sit back and I'm like, oh my God, what in the world have we come to? That words take us down. We call ourselves a superpower here in the world. America the Great. We're the superpower of the world. Bull. Other nations are sitting here laughing at us. We're the laughingstock of the world right now. How far are you willing to go to defend that? You know, you sit back and people go, we could take on the world. We're like, bull. A society that you can't even speak your mind because it might hurt somebody's feelings? You call yourself a nation that has power? You think the enemy cares what they call you? They don't give a flip about what they call you. You know, I remember back when, you know, when we was being drafted to go into the service and different things like that. You know, some of my instructors that taught me different things in life, you know, they talked about their time in the service back in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, you know, how that the drill sergeants was like this right here in your face, screaming at you at the top of their lungs. You know, your mother's this, or you're a piece of, and they just going on and screaming at them in their faces. You know, had to sleep in a tent that was so short their feet stuck out one end and their head out the other end with snow on the ground. And, these men were put through just literal hell on earth to make men out of them. And today, you sit back and you go, well, you can't say that kind of stuff. You're liable to hurt their feelings. You could psychologically mess them boys up if you talk to them like that. I'm like, people get real. I've been screamed at my whole life when I was a kid. I've worked with people who screamed and hollered and cussed and rant and raved and throwed stuff and all that kind of stuff. And I just look at them like, dude, are you okay? You can rant and rave and holler all you want and you can throw something, but it better not ever come in my direction, because if it does, I'm going to return it. And I don't miss. Okay? Let's just get that up front before we go any further. I was just raised that way. If somebody comes up into your face, you don't just run away and say, oh my God, he said that about me. I can't believe that. No. My dad always told me, son, don't ever start a fight. But if somebody else does, you make dadgum good and sure you end it. And don't you dare be caught second. And don't you dare lose. And that's just the way I was raised. All young men were raised that way back in the days. But today, it's all totally different. Today we live in a society where we sit back and everybody's like, well, be careful what you say to little Johnny, because you could hurt his feelings. This is the whole point that I'm trying to make today. We're all people. I don't care about race. I don't care about color. I don't care about creed. I don't care about any of that stuff. We all bleed red. It's high time that we come together as a collective body of people and we realize that everything that we hold dear today is at stake. And we put all this garbage behind us about he said this, she said that, he's this color, she's that color, they're from over here, they're from that country. God, it's time we put all that behind us and learn to get along with each other, learn to love one another, learn to become the United States of America again, instead of a divided America, because Scripture says that if two people are divided, how can they stand? If something is divided, it cannot stand. It will fall. And guys, today, if we're divided, we are going to fall. Is that what we want for our future generation, our children and our grandchildren? Is the collapse of our country, or are we willing to take a stand at this point in history? How far are we willing to go to offer to our kids and our grandkids what was offered to us? Are we going to drop the ball, or are we going to stand and try to pass on the heritage that we so freely enjoyed? What will it be? And how far are you willing to go to make that happen for your family? Are you willing to do like your forefathers did and purchase places to leave as an inheritance? You ever read the Scriptures? The Scriptures, I think it's in Proverbs. I don't remember exactly where, maybe in 22. A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children. Think about that. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That's your grandchildren. Do you want to be a good man according to Scripture? That's what the Scripture says. And then look at the rest of that verse. Now I can't quote it word for word because I got so much going through my head right now. But you look at the rest of it, and I'm going to paraphrase it. It says, "And he lays up the riches of the wicked for the righteous." Now that's a paraphrase. It's worded a little different than that, but that's what it means. You ever stop and think about that? All that you see the wicked people gathering up out here, the Scripture says, I'm doing that so I can give it to you, the righteous. Guys, in the Bible, James says, you have not because you ask not. But when you ask amiss, that you might consume it upon your own lust. Think about that. Do you have the things in life you really need? Have you really asked for them? And if you have, do you ask for them with the wrong attitude, the wrong agenda? How far are you willing to go to have for your family? That's the thought I want to leave you with today on Porch Time. Thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.